All right. We are live again. Maybe. We will see. Got to see if YouTube is going to let me do anything. Let's test the audio here. Got to see
Good
if
old
YouTube
YouTube.
is going to let me do anything. Cool. All right. So, with that being said, hello everyone, and especially those who have not been here yet. I have anarchist content for you normally, and today we're going to be covering some bullshit in the anarchist community, if you can call it
Yeah.
that. So, um, the bullshit generally surrounds some lies that are being told about basically anyone. Like, it's going to be somewhat of a commiseration thing. Basically, anyone who dares to criticize the right libertarian or post libertarian, basically GOP mentality of, hey, you support trans people. That must mean you're X, Y, and Z, every awful thing in the book. So recently, I was asked for my input on one of these issues because the person I have on here had some controversy, let's just say. So, with that in mind, before we get started, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, what got you started in this stuff, and what keeps you going?
Yeah, well, for anyone who doesn't know my Twitter, I'm Ace. I'm Ace underscore Archist on Twitter. And for the past, I essentially got started. I've been a libertarian or Ace underscore Archist on Twitter. And
Hold,
for the
10
past,
years
I,
now,
I
and
essentially, I've only joined
sorry,
Twitter like within the past like 2.5 years. Go ahead.
there was an audio glitch. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Where did it cut out at?
No, you're fine. Just you're
Okay.
Ace underscore Archist on Twitter.
Oh yes. So yeah, I'm Ace underscore Argus on Twitter. I've been a libertarian anarchist for about 10 years, and essentially I've only been on Twitter for around 2.5 years at this point. But I just really enjoy talking about liberty, talking about the ideas of liberty and things like that, and trying to spread it to as many people as possible in the way that I do. Um, and yeah, that's essentially who I am. That's essentially like kind of like a background, I guess, for what people need to know going into what we're going to go into.
All right. So in general, you've had a pretty good like history. Like you've been to various events. You've tried to
Hmm.
interact with as many people as possible,
Yes.
and you've also like you've rubbed elbows with greats like Scott Horton and a few other people, and
Yes.
generally
Very
speak,
privileged.
yeah. Well, generally speaking, it seems like you've got good intentions and that you're trying for a good future.
Yes.
Like what kind of future do you want for libertarians in general? Let's start on those grounds, like the foundational grounds here.
Well, as a libertarian, I want people to be free to do whatever they want to do as long as they're not aggressing against another human being. So, like encroaching upon another person's boundaries or violating their consent in some way or abusing them in some way.
Yeah. All right. That's fairly straightforward. So, with that in mind, why don't you talk about the last, I guess, week, and also what
Yeah.
has informed the last week? Because it's been more than the last week, and Toad's little stupid ass made that image of you a while back,
Yeah.
like I want to say 2 weeks ago, and he deleted it since. So, I
Oh, he
mean,
did. I didn't know that.
yeah, because I was looking for that image to show people what a piece of shit he was, and I couldn't find it, even though I found my replies, and I'm like, oh yeah, it says this tweet was deleted by the tweet author. So he clearly didn't get the response he was looking for, deleted that, and then went on a different approach. Um, so in general, I guess then we'll start with what's been happening that's been causing all this recently.
Yeah, so somewhat recently, I was in a quote tweet thread with someone else, in this starting. We were just talking about like libertarian ideals versus like practicality, right? The age-old argument about, should you commit to libertarian ideals or should you sacrifice some in order to get political power that would somehow help us
Fake
later
ass
down the road,
fucking
right? The,
pragmatism.
yeah. So, but this spawned another thread from one of my other mutuals, Drew from Lockout Days. he was just like he screenshotted the whole conversation and was talking about like how this other dude was an NPC, and then Top Lobster, who is another person on Twitter for people who don't know, came in with a very strange allegation that took me very off guard. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised from these types. But basically, the allegation is essentially I have his tweet right here. Actually, let me pull it up. He basically, because they were talking about, well, is it better to do nothing or should we, pursue political power? And Top Lobster comes in saying, doing nothing is preferable to rationalizing corporate fascism or pedophilia or whatever Ace is on about that day. So he's accusing me of essentially defending pedophilia or rationalizing it at the very least. And when I saw this, I was like, it was one of those like, I don't understand what is going on. Like, how could you even think this? Considering that my Twitter history, for example, every time any type of like even like sort of like anything like quote unquote that could be like pedophilia related, I have always been straight up committed that no, children cannot consent. I have been completely consistent on this, and if anyone
Pedophiles are
doubts that,
monsters.
yes. And if anyone doubts this, you can go back through my tweet history and just type in children, consent, or pedophilia, and you'll find out my opinions long from the times I first started my Twitter. So to be accused of this was very off-putting. And to be quite clear, that is one of the worst things you could ever accuse someone of, quite
Yeah.
frankly. And the fact that these types of people who are so quick to do this, they have no idea that they're doing the same thing the left does to racist, right? Like anything. Oh, if you don't like this, you're a racist, or if you support this, you're a racist. That devalues the term of racism. So when these people are going out saying, "Oh, well, you're a pedophile sympathizer" or something like that, you are actually you could be causing real damage just terminologically. To the victims of actual pedophilia because you were like diluting the term, you're watering it down.
Yes.
And that is, I think, the worst part of this.
Well, and also the fact that libertarians, if they're consistent, which I find you to be fairly consistent, should be against pedophilia entirely. But,
Yes.
like, a lot of people in this movement are willing to schmooze with those who aren't.
Right.
So like, you want to talk Top Lobster. I have caught shit from the same group of people, a lot, and one of the reasons is that when Jose Gallison was looking for people to fucking scrape clout from Michael Malice off of, he had Thaddeus Russell on to talk about Emma Goldman because of Michael Malice's book. Like, if that's not just, like, the most podcasty, circle jerky mentality, I don't know what is. But the worst part is that he had Thaddeus fucking Russell on, who is well known for grilling his college students, because he's a professor, about whether or not it's okay to fuck kids. And,
Right.
like, not only that, but he had this guy on, after this guy had Stefan Kirschner on, who wrote an
Right.
entire book about fucking kids. And so he had like that guy on who had that guy on. He had this guy on after like coming out strongly in favor of it being acceptable and like writing an article for the Daily Beast promote like having the back of Roman Polanski. So
Hmm.
I had the audacity to, in his thread with Thaddeus Russell, all I did was link an article that Thaddeus Russell wrote. That should be fine, right? You had
Right.
this guest on, you vetted him. He's a good boy. But it turns out he wasn't. Because what happened was I was blocked, meaning I was kicked out of this allegedly anarchist content sharing community. And I was also, like hidden in the thread because that's what blocking does. So my content was suppressed because it was calling out a pedophile supporter. And now the same crowd is willing to do this to you because you support trans people at all ever.
Yeah. Yeah. That was basically what it had come down to is that a while back I got into a little bit of a spat on Twitter because I said because I was basically coming out in defense of his on the right. So for anyone who doesn't know, for anyone who might be kind of like just unaware of like these Twitter spats in general.
Like,
There
who
was a
the fuck are
Twitter.
these people?
Right. Yeah. There was a group of people in kind of like right-wing libertarian Twitter, very right-wing libertarian Twitter, who it was coming out.
Libertarian Twitter. I'm putting air quotes since you can't
Yeah,
see video.
that's fair.
Because the whole
That is
thing is
fair.
fucking dumb. Like, these aren't libertarians. They're not libertarians. They're fascists. Toad literally posted
Yeah,
this thing supporting
he
fascism. But
did.
go ahead.
Yeah. Um, so they were kind of, there was kind of this there was this growing animosity towards like trans people and other minorities that I had seen
Mm-hmm.
like building up over time, and it was like always uncomfortable to me, but it kind of reached a boiling point. Because like I have mutuals on Twitter, I have people I consider friends who are trans and stuff like that, and you know, yeah, right, yeah. It kind of it kind of just hit this boiling point for me where it's just like, okay, I can't just like watch this happen. I have to like say something. And I essentially came out and said, like, look, yes, are there some people who are trans who are pedophiles? Yes, absolutely. But in the same way that there's Catholics who are pedophiles, that
Epstein
doesn't
was a
mean we
cis
should.
man.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the truth is, right, if we want to get into it, most of pedophilia happens from direct family members, like very close family members. So, you know, if you really want to tackle that issue, you think you would tackle it there versus going to the trans issue, which is,
Mm-hmm.
very small in population. So, but my point was like, okay, yeah, are there people who are pedophiles who are trans? Sure. There are also people who are Catholics who are pedophiles. There are also, people who are straight who are pedophiles. I don't think we
Mm-hmm.
should judge an entire group based off the actions of some people. That's
Bus
just standard
drivers.
individualism. Yeah, that's just
Fos-
standard individualism to me.
Foster home workers,
Right.
fucking public school teachers,
Yes.
like the list goes on. Boy Scout leaders, fucking
Right.
pastors, fucking, you know, dad, mom, that hot teacher that everybody makes excuses for and isn't trans at all. Like,
Right.
it's such a fucking retarded way to think.
Yeah.
It's so
And
stupid.
and from their perspective, they see trans people as being propped up by what they call, right, the regime,
The
and that they're
cathedral, because
the
they're stupid pieces of shit who can't think for themselves, and they just say, "Hey, Yarvin said it, so it must be true."
right. And not to get too off topic, but these are the types, as Toad specifically, who has argued that if you are in line with anything the regime says, then you're essentially the enemy, which is very interesting coming from a libertarian who is opposed to murder while the regime has murder being illegal, right? You have all these things that we may incidentally
Yeah.
align on, but they're not for the same reasons. Like, if you want to say that, well, the state propping up any type of minorities, which, to what extent they actually are is very debatable. But even if we assume they are, that doesn't mean they actually have the minority's best interest at hand. They're just using them as political props.
Yep.
And we shouldn't attack those people just because they're being propped up for some ulterior motive.
No,
That we
Stalin
shouldn't
drank
attack.
water. Dehydrate, commie.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just been this whole thing, and it's just been really, really annoying and frustrating seeing like people who like I thought were like kind of smarter than this come out in support of just attacking people who now I'm not saying these people aren't statist or like they wouldn't agree with us, but why are we attacking them specifically more than any other type of statist, right? It's like a lot of these people would be maybe more amenable to liberty or the messages of liberty if maybe they thought the people there inside the libertarian movement did not hate them or
Or want
something
them
like that.
dead, like so many of them
Exactly.
have been posting like alleged
Right.
jokes about. Like, it seems really obvious to me that if you don't want to push away a group of people, maybe not, demonstrating that you're not one of the hands that's going to keep them down would be a good
Yes.
fucking idea.
Right. Yeah. I think this whole like because there's a certain strain, and I'm not going to attach it to anyone in particular, but there's a certain strain of thought that says that all these minorities will never embrace liberty, so why do we even try? We should just regard them as the enemy. And I completely oppose that type of thinking.
Yeah.
I think that's just the wrong way to go about it. I think they're completely wrong. I think it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You think this is going to be the case, and then you act in a certain way, and then you create the very thing that you thought was going to be the case
Also,
because of
like,
your actions.
libertarians and anarchists are a fucking minority too. We're just not an
Yes.
ethnic or sexual or etc. minority. We're a
Right.
philosophical minority.
Yes.
So if it's okay to just eschew minorities, go be a Republican, go be a Nazi, you stupid
Yeah.
fascist.
I would rather they just be Republicans, but then they wouldn't have to, sully the label. You know what I mean? So,
Well, I
please just
don't.
go be Republicans.
Yeah, I like, and that's been happening with some of them, like, unfortunately. And like, the worst part is that I'm not, you know, I try to bridge the gap. I try to
Mhm.
talk to everybody. I've got
Yeah.
MAGA in my like follower lists. I've got Biden supporters in my audience. I'm mutuals on
Mhm.
Twitter with Andrew fucking Yang. I don't like discriminate in these sorts of ways, but I will discriminate against massive authoritarians. And that's what these people are demonstrating
Yeah.
themselves to be. They're demonstrating themselves to be authoritarian majoritarians who want to control the flow so that when they go with it, it serves their interests. And that's evil. It's especially evil when it comes from a libertarian mentality, which says that people should be free, and then you tarnish the freedom movement by saying, hey,
Mhm.
yeah, we want freedom for us. We're going to control you in
Right.
the meantime, though.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like the Marxist idea. Well, we'll reach a stateless society eventually, but until then, we're going to adopt the state and we're going to
Uh-huh.
crush our political opponents.
And
But eventually, we'll get to liberty. It'll
and
be
kick out
fine.
Bakunin from the First International Alleged
That's
Union because
right.
he was an alleged spy. Like, and he was
Yes.
right too. And he wrote a whole
Yes.
good book after that. Statism and Anarchy is fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He demolishes Marx. That's great.
Yeah, and so the thing is, like, for a significant period of time, Toad has disliked me. Because I had the audacity to say that the prefrontal cortex generally finishes developing from around 22 to 25 region, so
Yeah.
people should probably wait. And so he has lied and said that that means that I think anybody who, like, has a relationship with anybody below that age of 25 is a pedophile. He has lied about that
Yeah.
in order to try to minimize the argument that I was making, which is that we would have a more responsible and better, equipped generation of parents if they responsibly fucked and waited to have, sex and kids until, like, I'm more trad than these people. And that's
Yeah.
and like, I'm simultaneously more trad and more left, and that's why they can't take it, because I'm right, but I'm not saying exactly what they want. So he called me a pedophile well, sorry, he called me that at one point, and he also said that I support them at another. It's like, or oppose them at another.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's a mess,
It
and it's
is.
such a mess that
Yeah.
I'm like fucking up my words
Toad
talking about it.
Toad once argued that I was a supporter of the regime because I was defending the very people he thought was being propped up by the regime, in the sense of, like, not, trashing trans people.
Mm.
That was essentially what spawned it. And he was like, "Oh, well, you just support the regime. You're not a real libertarian." Blah 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 blah. All these people are perfectly fine. Toad, who has said, "Yeah, I prefer to live in, what is it, a fascist regime, according as opposed to a
Yeah.
democratic one." Now, I'm not defending democracy, but I will say I would rather live in a democracy as opposed to a fascist regime. Like, no question. Like, it's not even a little bit of a question.
Well, and the thing is, and here's where I get to sound really far left, is that we already have fascism, and we have for many
Right, we
years.
do.
Like, this is an
Yes.
authoritarian state capitalist modus where the culture is
Yes.
homogenous and ossified toward the direction that serves the state, and where businesses and finances have to serve the state as well. So,
Hmm.
I mean, that's fucking fascism. At least the first stages of it. And
Yeah.
so we have both alleged democracy and fascism. And I say, it is democracy because democracy has never worked. Like, the title of
Right.
the book, The God That Failed, is accurate. Whether or not the
Yes.
rest of it is accurate is up for debate, and I might debate
Right.
that at some point. But the point is that, like, that is accurate. It did fail because democracy was always a thin veneer over, like, what was actually there, which was fascism. It was, let's create a country founded on slavery and, like, violate the ethics and, like, alleged rights of people on a regular
Right.
and consistent basis as a matter of course. Like, that's what fucking Jacksonville is named after, is the
Right.
fact that Andrew Jackson was a massive piece of shit. Um, So he got to name the place he conquered. Uh, so like the whole concept of this country has been for some time fucking fascist, like, in essence. That's the reason you'll
Right.
notice, part of the reason they call it fascism is because it's idealizing and fetishizing ancient Rome and Roman totalitarianism. So it has the
Hmm.
fasces as its fasces, as it's
Right.
supposed to be pronounced. I guess I've got a Latin expert I talk to occasionally. He gets upset when I don't say it that way. So fasces. Um, it's got those symbols everywhere because it's fetishizing ancient Rome. Like, if you see somebody with like a fucking a wreath with an eagle in it, an SPQR, you're talking to a fascist. If you see somebody with fasces, you're talking to a fascist. If you see somebody with Nazi symbols, you're talking to a fascist. Don't tell that to anybody who supports the Ukrainian government, though. They'll get very angry. Um, so the whole thing there is that, like, you know, this place has been fascist for a while. That's why there are fascies in Congress. That's why there are fascies in Congress, fascies on the Lincoln Memorial, fascies everywhere, even fascies like on a lot of official documents, because fascism was based off fetishizing ancient Rome and Roman
Yeah.
authoritarianism, and so is this fucking place. It's the whole thing was fascist from the start, and so it's not going to be better because we get a more extreme version, because that's all this means is,
Right.
because we already have it and they're asking us what we'd like to choose between. People who say that we live under a democracy are going to choose, democracy if they support the current system and fascism if they don't. So what they're saying is that this system, which is already fascism, which they don't support, allegedly, should be like worse. And
Yeah.
that's fucking terrible, especially from a libertarian framework,
Yeah.
especially given the fact that these people are supporting essentially transphobia and hard right mentalities, because you realize that it's not because they're stupid, it's because this was the long game all along to, as Liberty Hangout put it, infiltrate libertarianism and make it
Right.
right wing.
Yes. There's so many of people who claim to be libertarians who only think they're either there for absolutely dishonest reasons. That's one side of it. But there's also some people who are only libertarians who think that, well, I'm going to be a libertarian as long as libertarianism creates the cultural outcome I want. If it
Yes.
doesn't create that cultural outcome, then I'm abandoning ship and becoming a Republican or some like fascist or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is absolutely like what I've seen from my own personal experience.
And then some of them were just already there and they've been
Yeah,
hiding in plain sight.
right. Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
these
Go ahead.
people are evil in a lot of respects, and that's why
Oh,
they were
yes.
totally fine with immediately accepting it as soon as anything got inconvenient, because it
Yeah,
was already their
absolutely.
plan.
Right. Exactly. And it's also one of those things where like I have argued like a lot of times when I'm arguing making very like milk toast libertarian arguments. Like these are not like esoteric positions. These are just like standard libertarian positions you would find in any type of like libertarian 101 book or something like that, right? And these types of people will argue with me that no, that's not what libertarianism is, or that's not what libertarianism means. It's like, okay, well, you can have that opinion, but it's really stacked against you. And then these are also, of course, the people who are trying to say, well, no, actually, the only way for libertarianism to succeed is to use the state and to just, crush our opponents. That's the way forward. And they say, well, that's the only way forward. And they'll say anyone else who opposes using the state is, just could be a Fed or something like that, or they could be just trying to hold people back from power.
Yeah,
Just bullshit.
well, and also, like, a lot of those people, they will insist that it's not libertarianism if it's at all leftist. And
Right. Yeah.
the original
Oh,
guy to politically assign the label libertarian, beyond it being an already left leaning position about free will and self determination, which contrasted with the determinist religious like order at the
right.
time. Like, if the first guy to politically assign the label and make it about politics was Joseph de Jacques, who was a fucking communist. So
Right.
I don't know what the fuck these people are talking about, but
And
they're stupid. And Rothbard agreed that he said specifically that that right libertarians were reclaiming it from the left. You know?
yeah. Yeah. And I remember talking about I remember I had this tweet a while back where I was talking about, libertarianism isn't completely anti-egalitarian. It is only anti-egalitarian in terms of economic egalitarianism through political means, right? It's opposed to that type of egalitarianism. But the belief that every person has the same natural rights, they're born with the same natural rights, that is an egalitarian framework. That's a moral egalitarian framework. And that is like to me a completely standard deduction of libertarianism. But I had a bunch of these types basically kind of like flipping out in my mentions when I said this. They're like, oh, that's not egalitarianism. And it's like, well, no, it is. It's just not the type you're talking about when you're talking about economic egalitarianism. It's kind of silly.
Well, see, here's where I get to sound simultaneously extreme left to those of you who know anarchist leftist literature,
Hmm.
but also simultaneously extreme right to those who think that this is exclusively theirs. Equality is impossible. Uh,
Yes.
um, because there cannot be two equal particles, much less two equal systems of particles in a biological being, much less two like equal systems of particles beings in like cohesion with each other. There will never be total equality. But that wasn't
Right.
even the point of leftist literature. The point was
Right.
to ask why these inequalities were so extreme and why the fucking shit was so disparate, yo. And like when people aren't willing to even interface with that, when people aren't willing to even interface with the concept that maybe shit was rigged, they even think Rothbard is wrong because his whole thing, like he participated in this journal Left and Right, like perspectives on libertarianism and shit,
Hmm.
and he went over state capitalism and how it definitely fucking exists, much to the, dick shrinking chagrin of a bunch of like fascists pretending to be libertarians. State capitalism exists, and if anarcho capitalism exists as a label at all, it should be to differentiate between the two. It should be to
Hmm.
differentiate between anarchist capitalism, if that's even possible, and statist capitalism, the one where the state controlled a bunch of territories and then distributed the resources. Like,
Right.
cut it up. And that's what fucking, I've been saying. I've been speaking leftist ideals from a Rothbard friendly, like,
Hmm.
uh, rhetorical framework, and a lot of these stupid cunts have been coming after me because they heard some right wingers say something different online, and even though they don't have proof and they don't have like any argument against what I'm saying, they still want to argue and they still want to hate me. So they're coming up and smearing me and blackballing me in all these circles. Like people won't have me on their show because of people like this. Um, and so, like, ultimately, these are the people who hate trans people, and it's not even because of the trans thing. It's because trans people are their way of justifying every other piece of bigotry because they'll show an extreme example, like the giant fake-titted Canadian, and they'll say that person is the only representation, and if you
Right.
disagree, then you're just with the establishment and you want to mutilate children's genitals.
Yeah,
Um,
it's such bullshit.
yeah, and then I bring up the fact, hey, conservative statists, if you think that it's such a bad thing to mutilate children's genitals, why are you not primarily focused on the primary version of global genital mutilation, which is infant male circumcision? Oh, well, because that's different. It's just a piece of skin, and also my religion says it's okay. Well, fuck your religion then, and fuck you for saying that it's okay because you did it. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like these are the people we're contending with. They're just bigots. They're liars. They're
Yes.
they're fucking disingenuous. They have nothing to offer in terms of
Yeah.
libertarian discourse, and they
Uh,
just want to smear people when they don't get their way.
yeah. Are you familiar with Paleo GOP on Twitter?
Uh Unfortunately, and only in
Okay.
passing.
Okay. Yeah. So, me and him have been going back and forth for a very long time about things like this, and he had the audacity to come into the thread where the first thread that Lobsta made, or the interjection Lobsta made, that I was somehow defending pedophilia or something like that, whatever bullshit. Um, he comes in harnessed for county council, at Paleo GOP on Twitter, and he talked about how he posed a question, but it was like in his mind a rhetorical question. He was like, I wonder if Ace would actually say it's depraved, wicked, and evil to have sex or want to have sex with children. And then he said, I bet he wouldn't. It's like, motherfucker, I have been saying this like as long back since I almost started my Twitter account. If someone
Mm-hmm.
searches my name and searches anything related to this, they will find the answer. He's just disingenuous. That's all. Like, just he was also the type of person who said when I forget who you said Thaddeus Russell had on, the actual pedo apologist.
Stefan Kirshner.
Yes, yes. So he linked. I mean, this was, I think, last year or earlier this year, maybe. He linked a video of him talking about, yeah, it's okay to have sex with 13-year-olds or whatever shit that was. And Paleo GOP, he was like, this is what happens. This is the logical conclusion of libertarianism without religion. And it's like, you bastard. For one, you claim to be a libertarian, and you know damn well that libertarianism does not logically lead to this. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like these people who claim to be libertarians, these are the type of people where it's like, if these are our allies, who needs enemies, right? like, uh, it's like you are doing such a disservice to the name and the ideology, the philosophy of libertarianism, that it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I just want you out. I would rather you be just a fascist. I do not want you associated like with this, because you're just tarnishing the reputation.
Mm-hmm. Like,
Yeah,
at least Christopher Cantwell being out about it meant that people could call him the crying Nazi he is, and people wouldn't
right.
argue with him. Um,
Yeah.
John Vejas says in chat, also, good seeing you. Been a bit since we talked on 12th Word. Um, yeah, I thought these post libs made some decent points early, but it's gone downhill fast. It's always libertarianism is a failure and impossible, so let's copy the biggest failure, conservatism. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like, there's a huge fucking list of people in the GOP who turned out to be pedos. Like, a much bigger list than Libertarian Party members. And a much bigger list than libertarians in general. But that's what you get. You get people who just want to, like, go over there because they'll get more clout. That's it. Like, if I did that, if I had done that, made the move just like so many other fucking people, you know, I would have enough money for rent on a reliable basis. Feel free to throw some money in the description if you want. I would be able to do a lot more if I sold out. There's a lot that selling out has to say for it. If you have no spine, a tiny dick,
Right.
and no philosophical foundation. If you don't have a framework, as fucking Jordan Peterson would say, then you would end up like this, because it's totally
Yeah.
okay to just ambivalently switch teams if you don't get your way immediately. You don't stand
Right.
by anything. You
And
don't have any principles, damn it. You know,
that's a
and
really good impression.
and yeah, I have relatives in my ancestry who took a small bit in Canada, and so I think I've got a little bit of that in my bloodstream, probably. Yeah, so like the whole thing there, if you don't have a framework, just accept and admit that you don't have a fucking framework. If you're not going to build a foundation, don't tell me that your house is awesome while it
Yeah.
sinks into the sand.
Also, these are the same people who talk about like how they have low time preference, and all these other libertarians have high time preference, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
they're superior or something. And they're like, what is more high time preference than saying, okay, we're not making any gains right now. We need to abandon ship and go over to the popular side right now.
High time preference by being on Twitter all the time talking about this instead of doing any of it.
Right.
Like, how many of these people are just terminally online, just tweeting
Oh, I
24/7?
oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm one of them, but yes, yes, absolutely.
But at least you accept it, These
Yeah,
people want to
yeah, exactly.
hide in
I don't
fucking
try
high
to
time
imagine myself
preference
that I'm
site.
doing something, that I'm
Yeah.
actually, out there. These types of people act like they're actually, well, unlike all the libertarians before me, I'm actually doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, We've also got MTAL6. I'm a very right-wing libertarian, but I'm also so tired of these grifters who have read Zero Theory and just want to
Hmm.
own people. 100%. And some of them literally make the fucking argument for it. Like, I forget who it was exactly at the moment, but he was literally arguing for voluntary slavery, where, somebody becomes a slave in order so that somebody else can live or whatever. Like, oh, my kid,
Right.
needs surgery, and this guy's willing to fund my kid's surgery, so I'm gonna go voluntarily work for this guy who can beat me to death if he wants. Um, you know, that's
Yeah.
fucking vile, and in no
Right.
way libertarian to beat
Yeah.
somebody to death. I don't care, like, who you are or what it is. It should be
Yeah.
about, if you're gonna have the liberty and property thing without the life thing, then it's kind of, moot.
Right. Well, and they all go together, and if when people don't understand that they all are go together in like a package deal, they miss that, right? It's like these are all like aspects of the same thing.
Yeah, okay. We got MTEL saying he's Harrison Wells. Hello. Yeah, we've talked a few times on
Oh,
some
hello.
videos. Yeah. And we're gonna have a debate coming up here after the next stream, just having a discussion. We're gonna have a debate about politics versus agorism as an approach to libertarianism. So feel free to hit that up, y'all, if you want, and like, share, subscribe to this channel if you like insane rants that make you feel like you're on some drug, even if you're clean and sober, like I am. I've been clean and sober for 4 years, and I still am like this. So you're welcome. The Jim Jesus says, need more dopamine. Yeah, like they just, it's all about that. And
Hmm.
some of the worst people are like that too. Like there was this literal fascist, Josiah Warren, not Josiah Warren, Josiah. It wasn't. I forget his last name right now, but his last he went by Volnost on Twitter, and
Oh,
I
yes,
kept on
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
yeah, I kept on telling everybody this guy's a racist, fascist piece of shit who wants to emulate Stone Toss, but worse. Like, people didn't believe me and didn't believe me, even though I kept on showing evidence and showing evidence. And then eventually, he worked with the friend of a pedophile to have me censored because I went against that pedophile. Um, like that their whole goal was to get my account banned, and they celebrated when it happened. Um, and so
Yeah.
and then the friend of the pedophile has since claimed that he didn't like he just didn't know that this guy was, after this guy had been coming out over and over and over again defending kid fucking. So like I have fucking veteran status in this shit, motherfuckers. If you call me a pedophile, I will
Right.
kick your teeth in.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it really is one of the most disgusting accusations you can ever make to someone. And if you make that accusation, you better be damn right about it. You know what I mean? Like, damn right. It's
yeah.
like, it's like, and the people who just throw it out there liberally like that, it's like, yeah, I can't imagine you actually care about like actual victims of
Oh,
pedophilia.
they
Because if
don't.
you would, yeah, if you actually did, you would understand the seriousness of this accusation, and you would only reserve it for people actually responsible. Um, and to throw it around like that is awful. So, why I brought up the Paleo GOP guy before, Harnish for County Council, he so uh, he specifically jumped in with these top lobster allegations, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like poking at it, and then when people started like making all these libelous comments, I had some of my followers like jumping in and saying this is bullshit. Want to shout out to NCR Anarchist, who actually was unaware of these accusations and actually did his own independent investigation into like my past tweets and found nothing. He found absolutely nothing. And I think that was the same thread that he actually tagged you in. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, and so the Paleo GOP, this person, he essentially was making all these accusations, and then what a bunch of people did is they started calling him a pedophile, obviously making baseless accusations against him because
Mm-hmm.
that see how he likes it, and he started blocking them.
Yeah, which is
So,
reasonable. Like,
which is a
also,
reasonable, yeah.
that guy has supported me, in more than one way, in more ways than most people have, in my anti-pedophile content for years because
Hmm.
he knows what it looks like when somebody's really going against these people. I still have a petition up that people are welcome to spread and sign if they want. Like if you have a Discord server, you could tag everyone, for instance, and
Hmm.
get them in on signing this petition about getting pedophiles removed from Twitter entirely. And
Yes.
like that's what I would want because there's a bunch of businesses that pulled out because Twitter is a hub for pedos and exchanging
Yeah.
child porn. That's where you should be. You should be over there opposing those people. Not
Right.
not not here saying that people in your camp are because they support trans people at all.
Yeah.
And then like it's such a lie. It's a new cultural shift. It's
It is.
it like we're going to anytime trans people are brought up immediately jump with no like verifiable reason, no verifiable and specific like, proof, we're going to jump to accuse you of wanting to mutilate children's genitals, of
Hmm.
supporting pedophilia and the
Yeah.
pedo cult, and
Right.
being a Satan worshiping, I've been there's been so much lately, and I've just been doubling, tripling, quadrupling down for the past like 8-9 months because these people need to get the fuck out of my shit if they're going to be like that. And I
Yeah.
don't even need to block like any of them because they just leave. Most of them block me after
And
telling me
also,
I'm a demon and shit.
you also don't even need to do anything except for like shine a spotlight on these people because they embarrass themselves, right?
Yeah, they're not good at anything.
It was obviously apparent to everyone who actually like looked at my tweets that I had never like defended pedophilia before, and everyone made fun of these people for accusing me of it. So when you do this, it's just not a good strategy at all. I don't know what they thought was going to happen, but it did
Well,
not work out for them.
everybody but the people in their stupid circle jerks because
Right? Who exactly? Yeah.
because all they need to do is go send this to one of their servers or tag somebody in the
Hmm.
post or put this in one of their group messages. And suddenly a bunch of people who wouldn't have known, cared, or agreed are suddenly with them simply because they are them and because these people aren't us. It's stupid,
Right.
polarized groupthink mentality where
Yeah.
everybody is just balkanizing against each other to suck each other off in the end. It's like,
Yeah.
just shut the fuck up. Everyone would benefit. We got the Jim Jesus, and you're saying all they can do is slightly modify whatever establishment is on the margins. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. I don't support any sort of political bullshit. I think it's all doomed to fail, and that the GOP was on Lolita Express,
Oh
just
yeah.
as much as the Democrats were. The
Absolutely.
GOP
Yeah.
is like corrupt churches, schools, etc., just as much as everybody else. You were gonna say something?
Oh no, I was just going to agree. But I did want to add one more thing. The Paleo GOP guy, he even went out and made an extremely slanderous claim. I'm sure he was doing it for a joke, but it's still a very serious thing. He was like, "Yeah, this tweet has nothing to do with ASIS child porn stash," right? So he's just tripling down at this point, and it's
Yeah,
obviously bullshit, and he knows it's bullshit. But it doesn't matter to these people because all they care about is either appealing to their in group or just like trying to get, as Jim Jesus said, I think before, trying to get that dopamine hit of oh, I'm bash the out group type thing, that that dopamine hit from ganging up on someone who doesn't agree with you or something like that. Because obviously I've had spats with these people before, but it's just really disappointing to see that this is where they would go. And he's one of the people who is running on the paleo strategy for
hmm
city council in his district. And I think it's very unfortunate, and I would expect much better from people who are actual paleo libertarians, who are supported this man. Who would, if he's willing to go out and make these false accusations like this, it doesn't look good for just optics in general.
Yeah, well, and so there's a lot of hypocrisy in these circles. Like I posted this morning, I said, if you'll go to an anti-abortion rally, but you wouldn't go to an anti-war rally or a rally against police brutality, it's because you
Right.
don't actually care about life and just use babies as a political football.
Exactly.
And you're also probably a bigot in some other ways statistically. And I followed that up by making a point that I've made a significant amount of other times, which is that once you realize that all they're doing is playing a macabre version of football with human lives, you can sit on the sidelines and commentate the grim spectacle like a sportscaster, recognizing that ethics don't matter to either coach as long as the ball keeps moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the party of principle should be like the fucking party of principle. Who would have thought?
Right.
And people who aren't in that party should be principled anyway, since the whole point of libertarianism is principles. If you're not
Yes.
principled, you're not a libertarian, because liberty
Right.
is a principle.
If you only use your principles selectively, then they're not actually principles, they're just tools,
Yeah.
right? They're just tools to acquire power.
And that's what a lot of these people are. Like, I went against fucking king-pilled people
Oh
not too
god.
long ago and got blocked by head king-pilled dude, Matt Erickson, who didn't like the fact that I was quoting the Bible to disprove all of his bullshit about, oh, the solution is stop being poor, work with those in power, be corrupt on your own, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. That's what libertarianism is, and the Bible says so. And no, it's fucking not, you cunt. And
Yeah.
I've had some Christian podcasts hint about having me on to discuss that, but it hasn't happened yet, so we'll see.
I'm also happy to see that Kingpilled has completely kind of like abandoned that at this point now, and he's just like become like a right wing tyrant, out and
Stupid
out,
used
right?
car salesman
Yes,
garbage. Like,
yes. So before he was trying to couch it and no, this is what libertarianism really is, and now they've kind of abandoned that, and they're like, no, we are just like right wing, like quasi fascist
yeah,
types.
authoritarian fast trash.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm so glad that that has been the development that they're because at first they were trying to like there's this always so for people who don't know what entryism
Yep.
is, entryism is when you invade essentially an ideological or philosophical movement, and you might agree, you might like say 80% of things that are correct, but then the extra 20% you say are something that completely forks the philosophy and ideology into a different path.
Yep.
And then you have people in there who try to then wear the mantle of whatever philosophy it is, even though they're only there for like nefarious ends. They're only there to try to warp the ideology to their own ends.
And then it just siphons people off.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and also, of course, while siphoning people off, be one of the sources of one of those pipelines people talk about. In this case, the
Right.
libertarian to alt-right pipeline. And then people say, hey, libertarianism isn't about liberty, it's just about being far right. And no matter who disagrees, they get crushed because these people are the forefront and these people get in control. Yeah,
Right.
it's it's like Immortal Technique said, it's why conservative races are all running shit and your phone is tapped by the federal government.
Right.
Yeah. And like that's the whole thing there is that like these people are directly supporting the establishment and the elites. They're just doing it by claiming that not supporting it is this awful shit that doesn't help anybody. And then when a trans person does look over here and say, hey, maybe people were wrong about these people, they see nothing but anti-trans shit, and they're like, hey,
Exactly.
that's fucking shit. Don't do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to join you. And people
Exactly.
wonder why there aren't more women, why there aren't more minorities, why there aren't more.
Yeah. Shocking.
Yeah,
Yeah. Why?
maybe
I grew up Republican, right?
same.
And in a lot of like Republican spaces, I remember Republicans genuinely wondering, why don't we get more gay? Why aren't there more gay people who are Republicans? Gee, I wonder why. Gee,
Mm-hmm.
let me think really hard about this. And now it's the same thing with this, right? If you come across as hating a certain group of people, or just like not even like just respecting them or just being very rude to a certain group of people, they're not even going to consider your ideology. Even if your ideology is correct, they're not going to feel comfortable even considering it because they're like, these people hate me and they're probably out for nefarious ends. And if they're libertarians, perhaps libertarianism is nefarious to my existence or something like
Yeah,
that. So it's
like
it's something very very like poisonous to when these people act like that while holding the libertarian label.
Yeah, like Harrison, if you're still in chat, sound off, yo, because he can confirm something in a group chat related to a guy who claimed to want unity, and maybe he does, maybe he does, but I have to show him what that looks like because what his approach was like. counterproductive, like antithetical to it, you know? And like the reason is that he had this fucking cunt in there who, you know, said that, you know, the timelines are converging, we need to vibrate higher, like that's all we need to do, is we just need to vibrate higher, man. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna say that like trans people are like, you know, literal, like they're all pedophiles, and they should be kept away from children and out of public,
Yeah.
and they're shoving things down my throat, and oh my god. And he called for genocide. He said that he's totally okay with government bans, and and if he ever sees one near or talking to a child, he's going to beat them to death. And you know that all happened in this allegedly unity-based chat. um he says I muted that group chat. Yeah, he's confirming it right now. um and so I made it clear to the person that runs it that I can't participate if this guy's there, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
support a unity that's not unity. I'm not going to support a unity that is going to threaten to kill a large amount of people because of their sexuality. And
Right.
that's not libertarianism, it's not anarchy, but this guy claimed to be both while he's doing his stupid. And he looks like a frog, too, in his fucking profile picture. Maybe someday I'll do a deep dive on his asinine garbage that he said in this group chat, but like, you know, ultimately, he's this stupid, like slanted chinned fucking, like weak chin is always a sign to me that somebody's probably got the wrong ideas, because like
Right.
if they can't even hold their mouth with pride, why would I expect them to hold anything else, much less principles? So this guy with like the weakest physique is coming in here and like being a bigot and calling for genocide, and then he says, "Oh no, but I'm anarchist, and also we've already won because the reptilian shapeshifters are losing." And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up." I'm not even exaggerating. And I said all of this to his face already. Like nothing is behind anyone's back. You know, I'm not exaggerating remotely about how this guy was. He says, "I'm really glad we have a separate chat that's just cool now." Yep, and that's my fault because I created a new one.
You know, Rothbard had this litmus test, which was, do you hate the state? And I think that's really good, but I would modify it slightly, which is, do you love liberty? Right? Because there's many ways someone can, there's a myriad of reasons someone could hate the state. But I feel like people who actually like genuinely love liberty and are honest about that, generally those are the types that don't kind of fall into those traps as much. Because you could hate the state because you feel like, well, the state is destroying the culture that I want, right? Which may be true, but these types of people aren't necessarily going to be libertarians if it turns out that that culture that they want is also not supported by libertarianism
Yeah,
itself. You know what I mean? So,
especially when you acknowledge that libertarianism started on the left, which it absolutely
right.
fucking did. Like then all
Yeah.
these people are like, "Oh, I hate the left. That's why I'm liberal." Shut the fuck up. Eat,
I'm
eat.
also very skeptical of the idea that, well, because there's this idea in like sort of like very right wing libertarian circles that without the state, the default cultural normativity would be right wing culture normative, right? Within libertarian spaces without the state. I'm skeptical of that. I'm not saying it wouldn't exist, of course, but I'm skeptical that of their claim that this would be the general blueprint for like you know what I mean, the general blueprint for like libertarian anarchist societies in general. I'm very skeptical of that. Like on one hand, you could make the case that, well, the state incentivizes high time preference behavior through their economic system. That is true, but sometimes they overestimate how much that high time preference comes necessarily is created from the state, as opposed to, yeah, some people just want to do hedonistic activities and they'll find a way to do it, especially when you consider that capital accumulation gives people more leisure time, and there would
Uh-huh.
certainly be more capital accumulation in an anarchist society. As far as that, right? You need less labor to perform more production, and that gives you more leisure time, and through that leisure time, you can do things maybe some of the right wing people would not like, and you can support yourself while doing it because we'd obviously be all wealthier for it.
Yeah, well, and also, so the ultimate truth here is these people don't care about time preference. They spend
No,
most of their time the same way that they accuse the people of, the wrong time. Like, time preference doesn't mean anything now. It's just
it's not
as
a value judgment either. It was never meant to be a value judgment. It's just an analytical tool to analyze things.
well. Also, like, it's watered down as much as the word racist or pedophile is. Like,
Right.
it doesn't mean anything if you're just going to throw it at everybody. Especially if you're not going to use the proper tools to, like, hey, maybe this is a fair judgment of the person, but maybe it's fucking not.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
the whole thing. It's a way for people to circumvent actual discussion. That's it. That's all. They don't care about kids. They don't care about protecting society. They care about their particular ideas going off, and if they can attach an absurd caricature of one group to the group that they already didn't like, then they can call for that group to be, persecuted as a way to persecute the other group and like put a meaningful face on their propaganda. It's literally
Hmm.
just, like fascism slash Nazism 101. It's that in entirety. If you read, Gentile, if you look into the historical fascist movements and the way the Nazis worked, this is exactly it. Like, libertarians drew in people from both alleged sides, and then fucking gradually melted down to supporting billionaires, fascism, and whatever else the establishment has to offer. And a politician who doesn't know what Aleppo is, you know like, there's and that's the reason I think that it's so much more valuable to be an anti-political anarchist or libertarian, because you're throwing your money and time and effort and energy at concrete targets that actually, like, your money's time, energy, effort, etc. is going to a good place. You don't know that when you're doing GOP or Democrats, and so
Right.
when this guy's like, oh, paleo GOP or whatever, is like, this is what I support, the GOP. I'm like, great, you and most fucking other people. Do you want a cookie? Like, you're not special. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's
No.
that.
Exactly.
That's my take. Like, so they want to seem special, so they have to make it seem as though supporting anyone else is going to be a terrible person. You know?
Right. Yes.
So it's stereotypical bigotry, fascism, etc. And these people want to couch it in libertarianism, and that's why we should be very aware of these sorts of people, and wherever possible, push them out,
A
because
hundred
they're gonna
percent. Yeah.
push you out first if you don't. Like, I got kicked out of so many groups and blackballed on so many shows just because I went against Jose Gallison and the people in that crew. Like, fucking, I don't need their clout, and I don't want it because it's going to be based on that sort of evil. But it is kind of disheartening that this is what people's exposure to libertarianism is going to be. Like, that's what it's going to be right off the bat, is people who won't take any accountability at all, ever, for anything. And who will immediately, like, silence anyone they can, in order to maintain their philosophical hegemony. It's
Right.
disgusting. It's
Yeah.
evil.
Gatekeeping is very important for ideological movements because when you invite certain people in, they will use that as an opportunity to try to turn your movement into something it's not. And then that just poisons the well for everyone involved. Anyone who you could try to reach out to try to like convince to your side, that the chances of that happening get far you have far less of a chance of actually turning people into anarchists, letting them see, how good liberty actually is. Because if they think, oh, this group wants me dead, or people within this group want me dead, I don't want to have anything to do with them. That's a very natural response for people. It's very understandable why someone would have that response if you have a bunch of people out in the front lines trying to like demonize a certain group of people.
Yeah,
So it's
who
you
aren't the
have to.
state.
Yes, exactly.
Like, stick to it, libertarians. If you want liberty, that's going to include doing with your body what you want, and doing with one's adult body, what they want has nothing to do with kids. You fear-mongering,
Right.
fascist, stupid piece of shit
Yeah.
hacks.
Yeah. And also, the whole like, oh, I wasn't really aware of this. I mean, I've always known that there's been like some people, some pedophiles who tried to infiltrate like the libertarian movement, but libertarianism itself has never ever like ever endorsed like pedophilia. And I've seen these allegations crop up in the last like 2 years or so. But now what's even worse is that self-espoused libertarians are now buying into that to then dunk on other libertarians. They're like, oh, you're just, a pedo enabler, or you're just, blah, 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 blah. Or, oh, yeah, you're just one of those libertarians who, thinks and everyone can, and children can consent. It's like bullshit.
Hmm.
It's like this is just something that they're using now to dunk on their political opponents and they're supposed to be libertarians themselves, which, they're not. I don't think many of these people are. I think they're just grifters looking for like power or clout or something like that. But it's certainly very disappointing to see.
Well, and if you want something to tell these people that might be amusing to you, here's a knife you can stick in them. That they claim to oppose the establishment. But what has the CIA been doing for many decades? The CIA has been supporting Nazis, the Mujahideen, the
Right.
Contras, the fucking domestic white supremacists, all these people, anybody they can really who will oppose communism.
Right.
Pinochet, fucking they're a fucking guy that they idolize and suck the copter cock off of. Like they support these people who the establishment fucking loves. So if supporting the establishment makes you a pedo, then not only do they support the establishment, not only are they pedos themselves, but the establishment is really rising up in the ranks and they should go volunteer to work for Ukraine's army because they could sure use some hands on deck and they would be supporting the fucking Nazis that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah? Hey, just go put your money where your mouth is. Those people support you. Anyway, now that I'm done sounding like an insane person,
No.
and if anybody wants to, find out more about that, just subscribe to this channel because I talk
Yeah.
about that shit all the fucking time. And I had a video like 2 days ago talking about it. I talked about the CIA and all that stuff like 3 or 4 days ago, and I talked about today yet more of the stuff involving the war over there and some propaganda. I talk about fascism and opposing it more than almost anybody in these circles. And also, I have already talked about anti-pedophilia stuff for more than like most of the people in these circles. So all the people who want to accuse me of supporting child genital mutilation or pedophilia, I hope redacted. So that's my statement on it. Hey, Ukraine's about
Yeah.
to join NATO too, though. So I mean, you might just get drafted into the U.S. military so that you can fight for Ukraine anyway. You can get your
Yeah.
your your U.S. hegemonic fascist dream of globalist fascism right now. You piece of shit, go do it. It'd be way more useful for liberty if were somewhere else doing
Yeah. If
something
you were
else.
anywhere else, just go away.
Just fuck off and leave. Leave us to
Yeah.
actual liberty. Fucking
Yeah.
piece of shit.
No, it
Anyway,
really is true though. Like I do feel like oftentimes when I'm arguing, right, I expect people who are not libertarians to not be libertarians. But when I see someone who's a self-espoused libertarian making terrible arguments, and not just terrible arguments, but also making arguments that are detrimental to other people in the liberty movement. And I use liberty movement loosely. I don't even consider myself really a part of it. Uh, but it's one of those things where it's like if your goal, as these people have said, is to try to attract more people or try to make libertarianism popular, you have a very weird way of going about it where you make certain groups of people feel unwelcome here. That's certainly a strange way to go about trying to recruit people. I don't think it's working. And I think you should probably reconsider your application of your strategy here because I think it's having detrimental results to the actual liberty movement. I think that many of these people just care about hating the left more than they love liberty, and I think
yeah.
that's clear.
Yeah, I've been making that like you've followed me for about like,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years now, and you've seen me make that point a lot. You've seen me go against, these evil fucking people a lot. And like the
Hmm.
pedos and fascists and shit on all sides. And so you know that I'm no friend to these people, and that I've lost a lot in terms of support and connections trying to do this. Like, share, and
Mm.
subscribe. I have an email list too. You can subscribe to that for my unhinged rants and updates as to what I'm doing. Any latest videos and shit. You can subscribe to that. It's in the description. There's also ways to support this content if you like it. But you know that for a fact that, like, I've
Yeah.
been in this, like, I've been on the right side of this for a long time. And these people, like, I'm the one, I'm the one who came up with, like, you hate the left more than you hate the state. And I don't like people acting like they're the same thing. Like, the left is the state and the right is not. Because the right is what their alleged left is. Democrats aren't left wing. They're supporting the state capitalist mechanism every step of the way. They're no different to
Right.
Republicans. They just don't say it first. You know, like
Yeah, I mean, like their version of like the left, like so many of these people define left and right by whatever like media they're consuming frames the left or right as. So it's like there's really no like it's very hard to like come up with some like quasi objective definition or at least anything that is like intersubjectively agreed upon.
uh-huh.
It's just like it's almost always a distraction to me. It's like, okay, if you want to find something disagreeable about these people, then just list out the points where you disagree with them. But having these blanket labels is just going to get you in trouble eventually because it's not going to. You eventually going to apply to someone where it actually does not apply, and then you're going to be stuck in this, us versus them mentality, and then it's just going to devolve more and more into like clicks and other like bullshit like that on Twitter. And I think that's what you've seen.
Or quote unquote accidentally sharing daily Stormer links on your official libertarian website.
Yes.
Lou
Yeah.
Rockwell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like there's a problem on the right, and right wingers would rather, like, absolve them of all responsibility and point it toward a more beneficial target to their goals, while everybody is shrieking about children so that they don't have to worry about the consequences on future children's lives of all the policies that they're tacitly or actively supporting.
Hmm.
Maybe it's that? No, it has to be us. We're the problem.
Right.
We got comments in the chat. Hating the state and loving liberty are not the same thing, but both are very important. Drew Hancock is really good in this. I don't know what you're talking about with regards to that. You can link me to something. You know where to find me. Necrospia says, my favorite part is the people who would tell you anti-war college students and illegal immigrants are part of the establishment, but we should do outreach to cops, LMAO. Yeah, or troops. Fuck those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also we had Fire from Earth Nerd earlier in the chat when I was talking about the state, uh, loving the idea of unsafe and irresponsible sex. Responsible fucking. Team try really hard not to get an abortion because you responsibly fucked. Team raise better kids because you were ready for them, Um, Richard Gallen says, yes, explain the Twitter niche. I have a life. Ha ha ha. Yeah, yeah. It's fair, you
Yeah.
know? I hope we did a good enough job. We had Alex Hatch saying, hi, everyone. So, hello, Alex. If you decide to subscribe,
Hello.
feel free. Libertas saying, my man. I don't know which man you were talking about, but either way, hello to you as well. All you feel free to sub. That's what I'd like. I'd like to, finally have some subs on this channel. So you can subscribe to me, all this stuff if you like. But yeah, like, and we've also got somebody on Twitter saying, had this open twice, they're still going. I think I literally didn't get to hear but bits and pieces. I hope the stream was working okay, so if it wasn't, let me know. But she also says, quote, just shut the fuck up and everyone will benefit, unquote. She says, I was trying to type out the second statement, but I couldn't type fast enough. It goes along with fuck the government, both sides are shit. All right, I agree. Don't make false accusations, fuck the government. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Like, and the thing is that if you fight the state, you're fighting the biggest group of pedos and pedo enablers. By the way, Liz, feel free to follow me on Twitter. I see you don't do that, at least here. So feel free. This account was banned for 1.5 years for being too based. So all of that. Is there anything else you would like to say before we call it?
I don't think so. I think I got most of that out. I'm just I was very disappointed in both Top Lobster and Toad in the past like month or so because I
Mm-hmm.
found them to be, I found them to be very, very disingenuous people. And these are the type of people where like even if they agreed with me, I would not want to associate with them because I know that they would not actually, present my ideas in good faith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I don't know if it's power if they're just power or clout chasers or if they're just trying to play up for their base. Um, but it's very dishonest and it's not something I as a person would ever want to associate with. So good riddance to them. And that pedophilia accusations is like one of the worst things you could ever accuse someone of. So that is like you at that point, if you genuinely think that, well, if you're trans and you're just probably a pedophile, then I just want nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Well,
That's just
and also, if you want to see some real anti-pedo activism, follow me. Subscribe to
yes,
this. Do that because, as Ace can attest, I'm one of the most virulently anti-pedo
yes,
people you'll ever fucking meet. But
yes,
you're not going to get that from these people. You're going to get these people having on people onto their show to promote those people who actually support pedophilia. So, fuck every one of them. They're
yeah,
garbage. Like, you block me because I posted one of your guests' articles. Have a backbone and either don't have guests on who you wouldn't like having their articles posted in your fucking thread, or, you know, stand behind your guests. If
right.
if if if,
And
I, if I'm a host and I have a guest on, I need to be able to stand behind having that guest on. I need to be able to say it with my fucking
right,
back straight.
right. And I also had some people saying to me, oh, when this whole like thing was going on Twitter, someone said, oh, can't we all just be friends? It's like, no, 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 we cannot. If someone is accusing me of defending pedophilia, I cannot just, and it's bullshit, and it's obvious bullshit because they have no proof. And also, when Top Lobster was asked for proof, Top Lobster respond, pay me. So for one, if
Mm-hmm.
you genuinely think there's a pedophile apologist out there, you're willing to withhold that information until you get paid. So either way, it's damning on both counts, right? So he knows it's bullshit, and he said it anyway. So it's really just it's like despicable. So no, you should not be friends with people who accuse you of defending pedophilia.
And you
No.
should also not associate with people who are willing to withhold the truth until money is paid.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. And yeah,
and like, so we've got multiple comments as well. Earth Nerd says they also mix up accounts of who said the AOC 25 belief, or maybe they think you and I are the same person. Yeah, see, like, I just, all I said was you should probably wait. I said that it would make more logical sense to wait until then, until your brain is fully developed and your finances are better developed. And because I take an extreme anti-pedophile position, they can lump me in whenever they want. So, Mr. Knight says, I began to dislike Toad and Jose after Toad failed to defend Tappy on a stream. He called her a friend and didn't defend her. Yeah, he does that. And, like, okay, so when he was in the group chat, a little bit of inside baseball here, he would regularly talk about his alcoholism and gambling habit. And he would occasionally be on, like, some voice calls, video calls with us, and drunk. And I would be telling him, hey, you could probably get your hair back, you could probably lose that weight and feel better about yourself, and you could probably in general have a better time in life if you spent your money on a home gym. That'd be a one-time payment, of like less than $100 to get all the equipment. You could get a home gym, and stop the booze, and you would feel better, live longer, and possibly grow your hair back. And he resented me for it, and would routinely, and like, also stop gambling because he has I don't know if this is still true, but back then he had a severe gambling thing. And the whole thing, like, he exhibits erratic and addictive tendencies, and he blames other people for the problems of the world when he should really be addressing his own first. That's been his MO for a while now, so I kind of hated him before this. I work out every fucking day, like no break days. I'm gonna go for a 10+ mile run again tomorrow. I did, a 45-minute high intensity interval training workout today with the tiny amount of time I had to cram before this stream. That's why I'm in my, fucking Punisher workout tank top here. Because I was just out there doing it. I'm trying to improve myself, and these people would rather insult other people and smear them and lie about them as a
Hmm.
group. It's just
Yeah.
funny to me how sad some people can be while pretending to have it well. And like I'm not a person of means. I don't even have the money to gamble with. But part of that is because I'm blackballed in a lot of these circles, which would rather lie about people. They would
Yeah.
rather lie about people and smear them behind their back and block them from groups than they would actually promote liberty. That's what I
Right.
don't like about these people. I've been lied about by these people on Facebook, so many, and just like it's a cavalcade of bullshit.
Yeah, you should have higher standards, I think, as a libertarian than just, or as a person, actually, to be a libertarian and you're a libertarian too. Because a lot of these people, even if they were libertarians, they're not necessarily people you want to promote at the forefront of libertarianism because they're just like very dishonest and disingenuous. So I would say be very careful of the people you associate with on Twitter. Because it's like you don't want to get wrapped up into thinking you have to defend people just because they're in your in group when they're just objectively wrong and making an ass of themselves on Twitter.
So we've got somebody in, and I agree, Shitty Titty 32 saying, I'm not sure who that is, saying it hinges in drag shows with children, basically. So I saw those tweets too. I'm gonna say my position on this. Um, Children shouldn't go to drag shows,
Agreed.
but that doesn't mean that all drag is like equally bad, and it also,
Agreed.
like I, you know, have my extreme anti-pedo positions, and my mother showed me Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was in fucking high school. So,
Right.
telling me that like any sort of drag at all is going to turn you into some child molester, I know for a fact that's bullshit.
Yeah,
Um,
that's just like a more right-wing moral panic.
And like teach your children proper defense tactics. Teach your children how to run quickly and get away from people. Teach your children how to contact adults. Don't teach them that all trans people are evil. Teach them what to do if they encounter any evil people at all. Be a better
Yes.
fucking parent and don't blame trans people for it.
Yeah.
That's my stance. I don't know if you have anything to add there.
No, I would absolutely agree. And when I was so what they like to do often is they took two different arguments I was arguing for and tried to like combine them into one. My
Conflation.
first argument, my first argument was that I don't think all drag is inherently sexually explicit, which will absolutely stand by.
Yeah.
There are absolutely types of drag, like dressing in drag. Dressing as a female does not mean it's sexually inappropriate. It's definitionally sexually
Bugs
inappropriate for
Bunny is
children.
pornography. Go ahead.
Right, right, exactly. Um, and another one was I was saying that, but I also said that just because I don't think someone in drag being around a child, I don't think that's an aggression or a rights violation. That doesn't mean I think that therefore children should go to drag shows in general. Those are two different things, and they were trying to combine those arguments into one and trying to say that by me saying it was not a rights violation, I'm therefore saying I think children should go to drag shows. It was just bullshit.
Well, also, like, Twisted Sister is a Christian
Right.
band. Like, they don't make Christian music, but they're a
Yeah.
Christian band.
Right.
Fucking, they had an entire, every year, and this is one of my traditions, um, I play an album that they put out. And this album that they put out is an entire album of Christian like forward fucking uh like holiday music, like all the Christian like Christmas songs with
Hmm.
basically no alterations except to like fucking um the 10 days of Christmas or what, 12 days, I don't fucking remember. But they do this, and they also have a show where it's all ages, and where booze isn't allowed and all that stuff. And it's, you know, a family-friendly show because Dee Snider, the lead singer of Twisted Sister,
Right.
is Christian. This entire band wears drag. So
Right.
if going to a show where people are wearing some wigs and makeup is so awful because they're not, you know, supporting the message you want, maybe they fucking are supporting the message you want and you just can't handle people doing things you don't like. And if that's the case,
Right.
you're just a bigot. That's all.
Yeah.
Uh,
And like, look, if you don't want to take your child to a drag show, yeah, absolutely don't, and you shouldn't. As I said, most drag shows are not child appropriate, right?
yeah,
Um,
like
uh,
99.9%.
so in my opinion, it's the same of like if there's someone, if you feel like you're and it's not exactly the same. I'm not trying to make an equivalency here, but I'm saying in a similar way. If you don't want your child to see clowns, or you think you just don't know what to happen, don't
Yeah.
take them to a place where clowns are dressed up.
Yeah.
People are dressed up as clowns.
I
Don't
hate
do it.
clowns. Don't
That's
take him to a circus. Take him to
yeah.
the fucking arcade. Yeah,
Right.
like so um we got Rescind in chat. She is currently my biggest supporter. If all y'all want to throw some support my way because you appreciate what I do, like, share, subscribe, email, newsletter in description, and also there's Patreon and PayPal and shit. So you can do that if you want. But she says, sorry to be late. I'm just here to listen. Yeah. And I'm also going to respond to your email at some point because it touches on similar issues. But maybe this will also address some of those issues while we're at it. Uh, Dwight Spelvin is laughing because of the teach your children to run away. Well, what would you rather? What would you fucking rather? What better solution do you have? What better solution do you have? Like, just tell them to freeze up? Tell them to take it? No. Tell them to get the fuck out of... Sonic did this. You fucking hack. Mindless fucking moron. Yeah, you do that. You teach your kids to get the fuck away from the stranger danger. This is basic shit, motherfucker. Come at me, bitch. Mr. Knight says, Eddie Izzard is a great example. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Shitty Titty 32 says, they attribute your argument with, like, clips of children at drag shows. There are people who
Right.
do that and they're convinced Ace is this way too. I'm trans, by the way. Yeah, yeah, like,
Yeah.
probably. They just take the
That
worst possible example and they say,
right.
this has to be you.
Yeah. Because my argument when I was defending trans people, this was coming at a time when their arguments were trying to lambast all trans people as essentially child predators or more likely to be child predators. And I was saying, hold on now. While there may be some trans people who are acting in predatory ways towards children, we should not, like, just it's the standard individualist argument. We should not attribute blame to a group of people just because of what the actions of one or a few people do, or just what individuals might do. That's never okay. So you should always like be careful of not doing that. And then they were arguing, and then they came back and started arguing that, oh, well, so you're just defending, these kids don't going to drag shows. It's like, no, that wasn't even my argument.
Yeah. Well, and also they want it to be your argument so that they can hate you for it. They would really rather you have said these terrible things than have a rational point. Because then they would have to contend
Hmm.
with that. And
Right.
Willard TK's over here. How dare you make sense? Yeah, how dare you? Fucking, like, the practical solutions here are, yeah, teach your kid to get the fuck out of there if there's a creep. Teach your kid self-defense to the best of their capability.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the fucking solution. And Dwight's over here
Right.
saying, YouTube will ban me if I tell you. Shut the fuck up. You're just as bad as that cunt who said, I don't run from anybody but cops. And no, you don't. You didn't run from cops. And he was using it as an excuse to not do cardio as part of a workout. Because I said, I don't have time. And he was a transphobe too. He accused me of wanting to mutilate kids' genitals too. And I said, I've got a run to get to. I'm not going to stick here and do this fucking argument with you. And he's like, I only run from cops. And no, you don't. Shut the fuck up. You're nowhere near as badass as you think you are. That's what these people are. They're like really artificially inflated and fake. But yeah, anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think I pretty much got everything I wanted to say, and I wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to like kind of like publicly, dispel this bullshit that's kind of been going on the past week. It was kind of annoying to see it on Twitter, so I'm glad I was able to like talk about it.
Yeah, and you can link the video, the original video that I responded with in the replies to that tweet if you want.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Like your quote tweet, you can do that
Hmm.
to increase visibility of like the rational points here, because the rational points here are what matter, and most people aren't
Hmm.
willing to think about that at all, much less actually have a coherent point. So,
Hmm.
or defend liberty, because these people like, oh, they didn't do exactly what I wanted. They're not liberty. No, you're not liberty. They don't have to do what you want. Shut the fuck up. Some of those that work for us is the same that burn crosses, and you're aligning with those people in an attempt to say that you're against the establishment. Shut the fuck
Right.
up.
Also, the idea that, if the idea of like, well, you're only libertarian if you're constantly in opposition to everything the regime is doing or does. It's like, oh, so you've just let them control your mind, right? Your positions are now determined by whatever they do, the opposite of whatever they do. So in some sense, your mind is owned by them. If they come out and say, we as the state, we like the color blue, and now everyone's like, well, we can't like blue anymore, guys. Nope, can't do it. We're not libertarians if we like the color blue. Or, it's just like,
Stalin ate
it's just,
food. Starve, commie.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, you. So the state, thinks has theft is illegal, or at least, civilian theft is illegal in the state. And you're gonna be like, oh, so you oppose civilian theft too? Oh, I guess you're on the state side then. It's like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
this is just such bullshit, dude.
It 100% is. That's why I'm not an illegalist. I think those people are a lot of the
Yeah,
time extremely ill-advised, because they're just like, oh,
yeah,
it's illegal based. No.
yeah, right, right.
So, anyway. All right, well, where can people find you? At ace_archist on Twitter, but anywhere else?
Yes. You can find me on Substack. I wrote a Substack article. I'm going to be writing a second one. It should have been out a while ago, and I kind of just like got distracted, so I apologize about that. You can find my Substack at acearchist.substack.com.
I'll
My
include a
original
link in the
argument.
description.
Thank you. Yeah, my original article on there was about immigration. It was a pretty detailed. It was kind of long, kind of detailed, but I was pretty happy with it.
And now that you have this video, you can make a Substack on this subject too and throw it in there.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Actually, that's a good point. I actually might do that.
Yeah. Anyway, all of you who like this thing, Earth Nerd says personal accountability is too much for some people. Yeah, 100%. Um, any of you who like this sort of thing, feel free to follow me everywhere, because I get banned. I was banned from Twitter for a year and a half. I've been banned from Reddit and Discord. Like, it'll happen again. You know?
Hmm.
So, but anyway, with all that being said, yeah, smash the fucking state and not your neighbor who
Yeah.
isn't a fucking problem. Be well, all.
Later, guys.